I was about 17 years old, and I was at a party. I was very, very drunk. I was drinking heavily to get the courage to tell this guy that I was madly in love with him. Right as I was about to do it, he was like, "Hey, you know who's so hot? Your best friend Corey." And I was like, "Oh, bye." So I left, and I should not have been driving. And then the next thing I know,
There we go.
Hey everybody, you're listening to We Still Like You, the podcast. I'm Jesse Batten. That mystery drunk driver at the beginning of the show was Jen O'Neill Smith. We're going to get back to her story in just a moment. But first, welcome to the show. If you have never heard the show before, We Still Like You is a storytelling show recorded live where people get up on stage and embrace their shame by telling their most embarrassing story.
This is a Captain America Civil War of the heart. I said I'm an improviser.
You were wrong, which is okay.
Today's episode is all about driving. So we have 3 stories for you involving vehicular shame. In fact, today's storytellers crash into a fence, a tree, wildlife, a bus, all while narrowly missing 3 children, a KFC, and an imaginary pet. It's going to be a lot of fun. So to get started, we'll get back to our first story by Jen O'Neill Smith. She told this one at one of our road shows in Atlanta, which was actually held in a former airplane hangar. Luckily, there were no airplanes there, considering the amount of destruction she can do with a car. Speaking of which, let's get back to Jen's story.
I had blacked out. My car was sideways. When I opened up the car door, I fell out of it. I fell out of the car. I was covered in blood, and I realized I had driven through this person's lawn, and I ended up literally in a tree. In a tree. I realized what neighborhood I was in, and my friend Ryan, who was a good friend of mine, lived 3 blocks down. So I crawled to his house. And turns out he had a crush on me, which, Melrose Place, I don't know. And so anyway, he lived in his parents' basement at the time. So I knocked on the basement door, and he answered the door, and I was covered in blood. Dude, no, I just hit a tree, my car's blocked. I can't even tell him. He was just like, "Jen, you're my best friend. I got you. Just go lay down in my bed. Just go to sleep. And by the time you wake up, all of this will be taken care of." Fucking Ray Donovan. He was gonna handle this shit for me. And I was like, "Dude, you're the best." Okay. And he was like, "Just go lay down in my bed." And I did. And then what seemed like fucking 5 minutes later, all of a sudden he was like, "You gotta come talk to the cops." As it turns out, I'm not Ray Donovan. They're outside right now. You gotta come fucking talk to the cops. So I had to walk back down to it and sober up and talk to the cops. I put on my sweetest girl voice, and I was just like, "There was a dog, and I swerved to miss it, and I'm so confused because there's blood all over my face. I don't know what's happening. I'm just very scared right now. And can I go to sleep?" And they were just like, listen. And the people that lived there never even woke up. They never woke up to flashing lights, AAA, cops there, me crying. They never woke up. And the cops, I don't know, maybe they felt bad for me or what, but they were just like, "Listen, we're not going to take you to jail, or we're not going to do anything, but we're taking your name, And if we get a call tomorrow that anybody called to complain about damage in the front yard, like, you're going to jail. Like, you need to come back here first thing in the morning and claim responsibility and offer to pay for the damages. And I was like, I'll do it, no problem. AAA took my car, and I slept at Ryan's No Funny Business. I slept on the couch. And then I told my parents in the morning, like, oh my God, I swerved to miss a dog, and they felt so bad for me. And, because it was so traumatic. And so the next day, I woke up first thing, and I flew over to those people's houses, and I knocked on the door, and it was like a nice little couple, and they answered, and I was like, hey, you're probably wondering why there's like all this shit in your front lawn and why it's totally wrecked and your tree is knocked down. I was like, that was me. Last night, sorry, I was driving home and a dog ran out in the middle of the yard and I swerved to miss it. And they just looked at me and they were like, hold on 1 second. And they go back inside the house and I can hear them talking, but I don't know what they're saying. They come back out and they were just like, listen, teenagers these days are really shitty. But the fact that you would come back and claim responsibility for what you did, and the fact that you swerved to miss a dog, anybody that swerves to miss a dog is a friend of ours. And then they handed me a $25 gift card to TCBY. And they were, don't worry about the damages. We're okay. We're glad you're okay. Enjoy the frozen yogurt. And I know Carmen's coming back to get me. So that's my story.
All right.
Comedian Jen O'Neill Smith. In that last story, Jen narrowly missed an imaginary pet. Coming up in this next story, Peter John-Byrnes hits a very real one. Hey, welcome back to We Still Like You, the podcast. This is our driving episode. This next story comes to you from the Chicago chapter of We Still Like You. It was told by comedian and podcaster Peter John-Byrnes.
He runs a great show in town called Cole's Chicago Cabaret. It's like a great comedy and variety show at Cole's, one of the best bars in the city. Guys, put your hands together for Peter John-Byrnes!
Good evening. So this happened a few years ago. I have teenage children. This is when they were still small enough to be in car seats. And I don't think it should come as a surprise to any of you that I am a parent, because I look like all of your dads. And yes, I am disappointed in you. So anyway, this is when the kids were small. One was still in a booster and one was in a car seat. They were like 3 and 5. And we were driving home from my parents' house in the northwest suburbs, go visit my mom and pop, down to Evanston where I live, and I decided to take a shortcut through Wilmette. That was mistake number one. It was a lovely summer night, and Wilmette doesn't have a lot of well-lit streets. I think it's because rich people avoid light. Because Wilmette, for those of you that do not know, I live in Evanston, which is where Northwestern University is, and it's actually remarkably rather diverse, because I'm a hero. And but if you take all the black people and all other minorities out of Evanston, you end up with Wilmette, which is the place one north. So as I'm driving through this not very well lit street on this nice summer night, a streak of fur comes just bolting out from the darkness, just directly under my wheels. There was no time to swerve, and so the car went ka-chung. And I drove for another block or so, and I turned to my wife and I said, "Possum?" And she said, "They make calico possums now?" Oh. So I turned around. That was my second mistake. I don't know why I turned around. Every time I tell people this story, they go, "Why the hell did you turn around?" I mean, my wife was in the car. That was probably part of it, but she knows I'm a monster. I could have talked my way out of that. But I had my two, small children in the car, and being a parent changes you. You think, well, they know that I've done something, and then I just can't ignore it. I have to go back and own up to it. So in some ways, this is a story about integrity. So I turn the car around, and I come back to the scene of the accident, I'll call it, instead of a crime, because I couldn't swerve. I didn't have time. In the film noir sort of spotlight of a single street light is a cat. And there are now 2 SUVs that have pulled over to the side of the road because Wilmette. And it's like a suburban culture, right? Like you get out at the mall, you get out at home, but everything else is a drive-through, so they weren't sure, I think, what to do. And I've got 2 women in the SUVs who are shouting to me. I have a cell phone, because that was back in the days when that was exciting. And because, cell phone, I had a cell phone. It was in the car. They were big, and they didn't really fit in your pocket. So she was very excited that she could help. And so I came out. The cat was still alive. Yeah. So I've got a Greek chorus now next to me. My wife and kids are in the car, safely away down a side street, enough to see me, but not enough to hear what's going on. And they're shouting, "Does he have a collar? Does he have a tag?" Yeah, probably. Bradley. Bradley the cat. Bradley the suicidal fucking cat. Does it have a number on it? Yes. Thank you. I read the number. I've called. They're on their way. Great. Thank you. And then I wait, because now I'm stuck. Now, understand the important part of this story is that because I left and came back, they don't know I did it. I'm not the murderer returning to the scene of the crime. I'm a hero who has stopped in the middle of the road to ward off any other traffic that might subsequently hit this cat. They say a lot of things about pets or family. I do think pets are family, but let's be clear, they are the only family members you're allowed to kill. And never anyone's first choice. That's an irony, right? Like if you were to line up your whole family, Fluffy is never going to be the first voted off the island, right? Because it's going to be drunk Uncle Phil or Grandma, because the dog's not racist, right? The dog's not a problem. So the sorts of things they say are like, he didn't know what hit him. He didn't feel a thing. He didn't suffer. None of this was true. So I waited. The cat was staring at me with what could only be considered an accusatory glare. And I just kept standing over him going, just hang in there, Bradley. And also, this was your fucking fault. You ran directly under my wheels. We both know that this is on you. And then Bradley looked up at me one last time and kind of like in a Bloom County Bill the Cat way went, as the lights of the headlights of the car are coming towards me. that's when it happens. Bradley's family. They're stopped in the middle of the street. They're crying. Because they don't know that he must have hated living with them. That's why he ran. He's a cat. He can't leave a note. And I'm looking at them, and they're crying. And my Greek chorus saves me. They're like, we saw him. He was just breathing. You can take him to the vet. Now I know that this is no longer true. And I've got my kids, and I'm a parent, and I've come back, and this is clearly the moment of truth, right? This is the moment where you show what you're made of. I didn't really have a choice, I thought. I said, let me give you a hand with that. And I loaded their clearly expired, still warm but moving quickly to room temperature cat into the back of their car and let him go. I don't know. It's worse than that. I'm even more of a monster than that. I open up their Lexus, because Wilmette, and I look in the back seat as I'm about to load their clearly no longer living cat into the back of the car so they can take it to a vet, and I see that there's a buttery leather interior. And my first thought was, oh man, I'm really going to fuck up the inside of this car with this cat. Because clearly I cared more in that moment for the cows that had been killed by a bolt through the head in an industrial slaughterhouse than for the cat that I had artisanally slaughtered myself. So I loaded it in, and they said, oh, thank you, sir. And I said, no need to thank me. And then walked past my Greek chorus, and they said, is he going to be all right? And I said, well, who can say? I could, no, but I didn't. And, yeah, sure, all this integrity. Fuck my kids. They can't see shit. They don't know anything. That's fine. I get in the car. They said, is the cat going to be all right, Dad? And I said, boy, I don't know. Here's the thing about kids. If you give them a straight answer with confidence, they're okay with it. And then I say to my wife, when we get home, we're going to need you to go in first. Because I looked, and there was blood and cat hair all over my hands. I don't know what the moral of the story is. I do know that as a story about integrity, it just proves that I don't have any. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Peter John-Byrnes. Thank you very much.
Peter John-Byrnes! Have you killed anything else since?
The hopes and dreams of my children.
Their ages are?
They are now 15 and 13.
Yeah, that's a good age for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just hoping to live long enough to see all of their dreams crushed. That as a dad, that's really what you're topping out at.
Well, when you run into them at an open mic, you'll know for sure.
Comedian Peter John-Byrnes. Check out his podcast, This Week in Despair, wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up in our last story, comedian Brandie Posie has to figure out how to safely crash her car. Welcome back to We Still Like You, the podcast. Car crashes can be really traumatic events, and even after all the adrenaline has worn off, sometimes the experience affects you in strange ways. Comedian Brandie Posie tells a story about dealing with the aftermath of a crash.
Thank you, you guys. Oh man, I am incredibly nervous to do this. I paid bills today instead of working on the story. Like that's like how much I didn't want to revisit how upset I did adult responsible things. My credit is going to be fantastic this month. So I'm not a person that is very good at like casually dating ever. Like that's just not a thing. Starting in high school, like you know your high school boyfriend, like the one. We dated for 2.5 years. It ended with him cheating on me with his ex-girlfriend a week after we had sex for the first time. And then I stayed with him because I had already bought the prom dress. And what else were you gonna do? So I ruined my self-esteem at a very early age. And when I went to college, I put on 75 pounds. I started wearing really heavy sweatshirts and like the baggiest Jinkos I could find and backwards baseball caps and like talked like this a lot. Like I didn't actually like want to become a lesbian, but I wanted everybody to think that I was. So guys just wouldn't be interested in me for a long time, which meant that I just like didn't. I like my heart had been crushed. I like did not know how to like have casual relationships with people. I still really don't. I get involved in like invested way too quickly. But the closest thing that I came to in college was I went to film school in Philadelphia, and I became really good friends with this guy that his name is Paul. And he joined the army to basically pay for his own college. Like one of those guys that like signs up not because he wants to kill people, but because he actually wants to like, you know, have a good life for himself, and the army can like help, and like that'll be a great thing. We got to know each other because he moved overseas to Uzbekistan for 1.5 years, and we like started kind of just talking online. And like I was like, okay, cool, this is a guy, it's a safe distance. He also had a girlfriend at the time, and we just were platonic friends, getting to know each other. She cheated on him, and I was like, dude, I fucking get it. You're a goddamn hero. Who's cheating on you? This is fucking awful, man. I'm sorry. So we like became super bonded. 1.5 years, we're talking online every day, because I also had like horrible depression. So I was like up every night, 4 a.m., which is like exactly when you're like online in Uzbekistan if you're in the army. So we were talking constantly. He comes back to Philadelphia to like get to college. The first weekend that he's home is Memorial Day weekend, and a bunch of us get this like house down the shore. And I'm just like, holy shit, the guy that I think I'm kind of in love with is like gonna be here. This is terrifying because I have not been in love with anybody in years. So Memorial Day weekend happens. I'm driving a bunch of us down the shore, and I used to have this bitchin' ride. I had a 89 Buick station wagon, tinted windows like a drug dealer, fake wood paneling on the sides, you guys. I had a turtle top full of crazy hats and nachos, because that's how I party. And we're going down the shore. We come off of this exit, and I have like a car full of my friends and like 2 people sitting in like the back, and my brakes stopped working on my car. And I purposely did not tell anybody in my car because I didn't want them to panic and get hurt more. So I just like said quietly to my friend Cameron that was sitting next to me, I was like, the brakes aren't working. And he said, what? And I said, yep. I had about a half a mile before a red light where cars were going in the opposite direction. And I was like, I need to crash into something, because if I had pulled my e-brake, the back of my car would have been smashed and 2 of my friends would have died. There was a Wendy's parking lot to the right of me that had a field behind it, and it was like fucking perfect. But then a family with 2 children ran out, and they were playing in the parking lot, and I was like, well, fuck. So what I did is I crashed into a short bus. I made a conscious decision to drive my car of friends into a short bus because it was only a driver on it, don't worry. Not that that makes it any better, but I was like, it's the only thing that's heavier than my car. And like, this is who I am as a person. I like felt bad that my brakes stopped working, so I was going to sacrifice myself, so I drove my half of the fucking car into the bus, which is a crazy thing. And then I got out of the car, and there were just crazy hats and Doritos fucking everywhere because I can't even fucking crash a car to not be a goddamn comedy joke. And my friend Paul was sitting in the seat behind me, and like my friend Cameron was next to me, and my friends were in the car. And the driver of the short bus is just like, what the fuck just happened? And I was totally cool because I wanted to make sure everybody was fine. Like, I'm a person that like, I don't panic in the moment. It all will hit me afterwards once I've made sure everything is cool. Like, I'm good in a crisis, and then I will lose my fucking shit later. My door had been crushed in on the side of me, and luckily the only thing that happens is I had to get like stitches inside of my mouth. But Paul apparently is the one that ripped my door off. I don't remember him doing it. I remember, this is not a joke, Chuck Norris in a white karate gi. Like, that is how much I did not want a real man to save me. Like, that is how much I, like, feared the idea of somebody actually having my fucking back, that I just, like, superimposed Chuck Norris on this fucking guy. And was just like, and later he was like, yeah, that door is crazy. And I was like, yeah, where's the red-headed guy in the karate gi that ripped the door off? And he was like, no, that was me. And I was like, no, I mean, you were there, but like, where's the guy? He's like, no, I pulled you out of the car. And I was like, yeah, but there was also the other guy that was here. And I just did not believe that it was just him. I believed that like a guy that looked exactly like fucking Chuck Norris had ripped the door off of the car. So I like get out, I'm like, my face is bleeding, but I'm just like, is everybody cool? Awesome. I walk over to the Wendy's, this old woman like runs out with a bottle of water, and I was like, you need to drink water! She like threw water at me, and I was like, it's okay, we're gonna be fine. I go to the hospital, I break down, cry for like an hour and a half, because like my life is flashing before my fucking eyes. I go to the shore house with my friends, and we all like had nicknamed ourselves Crash and the Wrecking Crew for the weekends. I was Crash, because I did do it. So we get to the house, and like that first night, a bunch of us are all just sleeping in this room, and like Paul had like been trying to talk to me the entire time, and I just did not want anything to fucking do with him. There was this thing in me that clicked that was just like, my life flashed before my eyes. I don't want anybody to fucking love me. I'm gonna find a way to work through this on my own. I don't want this dude. Nobody will see me be weak. Like, nobody will see that at all. Like, I refuse to let somebody that cares about me into this moment. Will not let that happen. So I ended up hooking up with an asshole that night in the same room that Paul was sleeping in, which is the worst thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And 6 months later, he got shipped back out to Uzbekistan. And he's fine. He's not dead. He's not dead. What if, though, you know? The guy that I ended up hooking up with, I dated him for a month, and we broke up because he voted for George Bush. I was just like, this is fucking... It is a deal breaker, right? Complete fucking deal breaker. I was like, fuck this. Also, 3 weeks before we had started dating, I convinced him on a drunk night that he had made out with a girl in a wheelchair only because he held her against the stairs and wouldn't let her roll away. That's the guy that I hooked up with instead of that sweet dude that saved my fucking life. That's who I am as a person, you guys. It was a rough fucking night. And like, it really sucked because like I didn't even process it until like years later, and I was like, oh, this was like a sweet, good dude that like I fucked over the way that I had been fucked over in high school. And like I've looked him up. He's like married, he has a kid, and he has a ponytail, so he's fine. You know, it's all good. But like, it really like crushes me to think about possibly ever having, even for a moment, made him as cynical as I was for a very long time. Thank you.
Comedian Brandie Posie. That last story came from our LA edition of the We Still Like You live show, which actually just celebrated its 1-year anniversary. Our producers, Andy Sell and Evan Wood, have been doing an absolutely amazing job. If you live in California or are visiting California and you go to one of the live shows coming up, make sure you give them a big, big hug for us. And that's our show, guys. Thank you so much for listening this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. In the meantime, if you want to tell a story at a We Still Like You show, you can. Just go ahead and email us a little pitch at westilllikeyou@gmail.com. Also, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the show. Just hit the button, and then episodes will be automatically downloaded and ready for you. You'll actually get episodes a little bit sooner than people who don't subscribe as well. Once again, I'm Jesse Batend. Thank you so much for listening.
We Still Like You is produced by Dan Sheehan, Danny Gallegos, Tyler Snodgrass, Shannon Knoll, and J. Michael Osborne, who is also our resident live artist. In Los Angeles, it is produced by Andy Sell. The podcast is produced by Jesse Patend, engineered by Jesse Patend and Sam Haas. Our theme song is Specific People by Jake Tobin. Big thanks to all the people who've housed our live shows at various undisclosed locations around Chicago, and to you, the listener, for being there.
If you'd like to know more about where you can watch We Still Like You or submit to be on We Still Like You, please check out our website, which is westilllikeyou.com, and also you can find us on Facebook.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.